Toxic best friend story time. So I had an off and on friendship with this one girl. In my freshman year, we became friends again. And she had this boyfriend named Nicholas. And they literally fought 24/7. And every time she would fight, she would be like, "Can you please fix this for me?" So she would have me add him on Snapchat, fix it, and then block him. And guys, this literally was happening like 5 times a week. And then after she asked me to do that the first few times, I realized she started going through my phone. And when I say my phone, I mean my whole motherfucking phone. A bitch was going through my Snapchats, DMs, text messages, and I didn't know how to confront her because that's just weird. So the one day I was getting ready at her house because we were about to go out, and she was like, "I'm grounded, can I use your phone real quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, just let me Snapchat this last person back." And she goes, "No," and rips the phone out of my hand. And she starts going through my Snapchat right in front of me. And I had a streak with this kid named Nick. She goes up to me and says, "What the fuck is this?" Like for part 2. Okay guys, I'm making the part 2 right now, and I'm literally laying in bed. I took off my makeup, and you guys have to realize that I literally do these videos at like 10 o'clock at night, and they get posted at like 1 in the morning, and then I go to bed at like 2. And for all of you commenting I'm clout chasing, bro, chill out. It's been like 3 hours. So anyway, she comes up to me and shoves the phone in my face and goes, "Who the fuck is this?" And I literally looked at her and started laughing my ass off. And she was like, "What the fuck is so funny, Kaylee? Blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Go ahead, hold on the name." And she held on the name and realized it wasn't her fucking boyfriend. So I packed up my things while she literally went and sat on her bed and started crying. She was like, "I don't want to lose my best friend." So fast forward, her and her boyfriend broke up. Her and I weren't friends anymore. And then she would always try to accuse me of getting with him. Moral of the story, don't get involved in other people's relationships. Bye guys.
I don't like my girlfriend's friends. We've dated for about 3.5 months. None of her friends are in relationships as of right now, yet they all make fun of her for dating me. They make fun of how skinny I am. They'll take screenshots of my Instagram posts and send them to their group chat just to make fun of me, stuff like that. In fact, the group chat is where most of it goes down. My girlfriend has sent me screenshots of the group chat, and it kind of pisses me off because I've never even met half of these people, and they all already give her crap about me. For those who I have met, the exchanges have been polite, and I was as kind as I could be to them. I just don't know what I should do or how I should proceed. My girlfriend kind of just goes along with it and laughs too, and I think she thinks that it's funny. I just don't know how to approach it or how to really bring it up to her. A lot of her friends are socially awkward and avoid talking to me. She says that it's because they're intimidated by me, but really, there's no reason for them to be, so I'm starting to think that's a lie. I was seeing a girl in college, and we actually lived quite close to each other, so we'd seen each other a little bit over the summer. I'd been to her house, met her parents, etc. She went away on a trip with the college choir, and her phone wasn't going to work while she was away, so I decided to surprise her at the airport when she got back. You know, be all romantic and stuff. So I'm waiting at the airport arrivals lounge. I start to see a couple of faces I recognize from college filter through. She then walks through. I start to walk towards her, and I realize that she's holding hands with one of my high school friends that also went to my college and happened to go on the trip with her. I'm not stupid. I quickly realize what's going on, but by this point, her dad has already seen me, walked up to me, and started a conversation with me. By this point, I'm reasonably sure I'm going to implode, and it's too late to get away. She's here, he's here. It's just really awkward. She tells me that we need to talk, and I say that we probably don't need to bother and walk back to the coach station for my 3-hour bus ride home. Storytime, kicking out my brother's girlfriend. I've been married to my wife for 6 years, and we have 3 children. I live and was born in the U.S., but my wife is from a different country and moved here 6 years ago. She speaks fluent English, but does have an accent. A few months ago, my brother started dating his girlfriend, and since they live 6 hours away, we usually don't see each other. Yesterday, my brother and his girlfriend drove to my house intending on spending a day with us and to introduce his girlfriend. Back at the end of December, my wife's parents passed away, and it absolutely destroyed her, especially since she wasn't able to go to their funeral due to COVID. When they got here, my brother gave his condolences and introduced his girlfriend. Literally right after we sat down and my wife introduced herself to my brother's girlfriend, she made a joke about her accent. I, of course, told her to cut it out, but around 10 minutes later, she started mocking my wife's accent again. After seeing how hurt my wife looked by the jokes, I was absolutely livid and told my brother's girlfriend that she needed to leave. My brother said that they have been driving for a while, they're hungry and tired, and that I should be more reasonable. I told him that he could leave with her if she wants. His girlfriend called me an asshole and went to their car.
My boyfriend proposed to me on Christmas. Everything was perfect. He bought me this beautiful Tiffany & Co. diamond ring. The ring was a little big, so I decided to go in to get it resized. They took the ring into the bag and tried to pull up his information, but were unable to. After inspecting the ring, the manager comes out and shows me that it's not a Tiffany ring, saying there's no engraving on the inside. My first thought is he probably bought it used from someone and got duped. So when I got home, I asked him if he got it used and it's okay, but he flipped out on me, saying no, it's brand new from the Tiffany store. He got upset, saying I'm snooping around for the price of the ring. He told me I should have consulted him and he would have had it sized for me and that it feels like I'm going behind his back. So I did a little snooping. I went on his Amazon account and I saw that he purchased 2 rings. The first one was bought December 2nd, the one he gave me on Christmas, and then another one a size smaller last night. I'm not upset that he didn't buy me a Tiffany ring. I'm upset that he lied about it. I told him I didn't need the ring. He could have bought me a $200 14 karat gold band at Macy's and I would have been fine. Instead, he spent money on a box and 2 fake rings. He then confessed and said he got the box from his friend who proposed with a Tiffany ring. I don't know what to do.
Storytime. Is my food intolerance an allergy? I have a nightshade intolerance. In particular, potatoes, potato starch make me incredibly sick to my stomach. People tend to not take me seriously if I say I have an intolerance. I get sick even if my food is touching my fries or chips, yet sometimes waiters will ignore me and serve them anyways. For some reason, people think that an intolerance is a diet choice rather than an actual medical issue. As a result, I've started referring to it as an allergy when I go out to eat. On Friday, I was out to eat with some family friends when I mentioned to the waiter that I had a potato allergy. One family friend interrupted and said, "Oh, it's not an allergy. It's not like she'll die." Luckily, my mom was with us and immediately spoke up that while I might not die, I do get extremely sick, so it's important that I not be served anything with potatoes. Am I wrong for technically being dishonest and saying that I have an allergy so that people take my intolerance seriously? Not making my daughter rehire our neighbor to her small business. My 12-year-old daughter started a small business with money she'd saved up and even hired a few kids from the neighborhood to work with her. One of the neighborhood kids she hired wasn't doing good work, so she ended up firing them. I stayed out of it. The mother of the child my daughter let go contacted me and said her child was feeling left out now that they couldn't participate in the business and asked me to instruct my daughter to rehire them. I explained that I'm really not involved in the business at all, so I didn't feel right doing that. She said that that's all well and good to stand back to an extent, but when it gets to the point that it's exclusionary, it's my responsibility to step in as the parent, because now her child's feelings have been hurt, and that's more important than how lucrative my daughter's business is or is not. I told her I couldn't help. She was pretty flustered and said that I could help, but I was choosing not to. It got to a point that I more or less had to ask her to leave my house. I see both sides and worry that I was harsh in what I said to her, or should have given her concerns along her hearing. But I don't know what else I could have said or not said to her. Am I wrong for refusing to intervene?
My sister and I have always been mistaken as twins. I'm 19 and she's 16, but we have the same height, skin tone, and similar voice. She also has a habit of being a copycat, from the way I dress to hobbies, even piercings. I know it's cute if you look at it from the outside, but sometimes it gets annoying. Like, yeah, we are quite close too, but why does she always happen to pick up everything I pick up? One afternoon, I was tidying up some costumes in my college showroom and found a rather cute brown and pink wig. It looks like a mushroom. I put it on, think it looks rather funny, so I snapped a picture and posted it to my Instagram. I received a text from my sister asking if I really cut my hair. I didn't mention it was a wig. While I somewhat have a feeling that she might copy that too, I lied and replied yes. I came home that weekend and lo and behold, my sister emerged with the same silly brown and pink bob cut, except this one is on her permanent hair. She was surprised that I arrived with my hair still long, then realized that I lied to her. She was furious that she had to cut that silly hairstyle because she thought I had it. Our parents think that it's a really bad joke and wanted me to cut my hair too to make it up to her. So am I the asshole for telling my sister I cut my hair when I really didn't? My mother-in-law is super passive-aggressive, rude, and disorganized. Leading up to my wedding, she always criticized me about my weight. After our wedding, she was kind enough to offer to store some of our wedding stuff. A year later, my mother-in-law announces that she's going to do a big vow renewal celebration. Thought it was a bit ridiculous for a 65-year-old woman on her 3rd marriage, but hey, it's her money. As the ceremony starts, the bridesmaids come down, and then enters the bride, wearing my dress. At this point, I'm raging. My husband and I confront her after the ceremony, where she denies and says I'm delusional for thinking it's my dress. I tell my husband we're leaving, but she starts crying and begging us to stay, swearing it's not the same gown. The next day, we go to her house to get the wedding stuff she stored. She gives us everything besides the dress, saying she lost it. After lots of screaming on my end and threats, she finally gets my dress. Lo and behold, it's the same dress she wore last night, except for the alteration of the corset and complete with her sweat and food stain from the night before. She starts sobbing and saying she thought it would look better on her because she's been working out so much and how she couldn't afford a new dress. I can now never wear my dress because she altered it to her size. I work as an assistant for a really big fashion company. I had a defective wedding dress and my boss asked if I knew anyone we could give it to. My best friend recently got engaged, so it was perfect. When she posted on Instagram to thank me and my boss, my family caught wind of it, and that's when the influx of calls came. I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 after I came out to them, and my sister wasn't much better. They demanded to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not to my sister. I didn't even know she was engaged. They suggested I try to take it back from my friend, as family should always come first. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain. I just got off the phone with my mom, and this is how the conversation went. She says my sister is very upset about the dress, and I told her she needs to get over it. My mom says I can make it up to them by giving her another dress. I posted one last night on my Instagram. It's a $12,000 dress, and that's the one my sister wants. And I told her, you expect me to give you a $12,000 dress when you kicked me out when I was 16? My mom says, that was a long time ago and we're talking about your sister, not me. When I refused to give the dress, my mom says the least I can do is help her buy one. At this point, I hang up and I've been avoiding them since then. I'm currently 2 months pregnant, but my mother-in-law has clearly stated she is not happy for me and hates that I'm pregnant. She's been coming over a lot to cook for us, but I haven't been eating her food. Not because I don't like it, I've just in a lot of pain and very nauseous. But she's always complaining about it. I've been taking a lot of vitamins for my pregnancy, and when my mother-in-law asked, I didn't think much of it. This past Sunday, she came into our house and stayed for hours. Everywhere I go, I see her looking for something. I ask what she's looking for, but she doesn't say what, so I walk away and give her privacy. The past few days, I've had really bad abdominal pain, upset stomach, headache, and nausea. So when I called my doctor, she asked if I was taking anything, and I said yes, vitamins. She asked me to bring them in. That's when she told me it wasn't vitamins, it was actually aspirin. I knew right away my mother-in-law was the one who switched them out. I can't believe it. My mother-in-law made me feel so sick and I almost miscarried if I didn't go see a doctor. I told my husband and he confronted his mom. She completely denied it and said she would never do anything to harm her unborn grandbaby. It's so clear that she replaced my vitamins and she's lying about it. I'm so upset and I feel like I'm not being safe with her. I have no trust and I want her out of my life. But my husband says we have no proof.
I just ended things with my girlfriend of over a year. We live together and have shared a lot of love and good times. She's very generous, loving, kind, shared responsibility pretty well around chores, and made me feel special with dates and gifts regularly. She helped me through some very hard times this year. I often thought that we'd be together forever. But something was missing, and our communication often felt off. She would easily become defensive to me, voicing feelings, needs, raise her voice or speak in an angry tone, sometimes even saying hurtful things that she didn't mean, sometimes shut down or even dismiss me for days. We went to therapy, and she made a lot of changes, but I still felt uneasy with her. I could never tell if she was responding to me in a patient way or a hostile way if I raised an issue. She seemed to think that I was asking for perfection and wanting her to watch her tone, listen, not get so reactive. She says that she's making it up that counts, not the conflict. She told me good luck finding someone who can do all of that for you. I feel hurt, and I'm doubting myself. I don't trust my girlfriend. We've been together for a little over a year, and I'll start by saying that she's told me that she's cheated multiple times in previous relationships and has been the type to line up the next guy, as they say. She's also told me that she took time to work on herself, and she's not the type of person anymore. And at first I was okay with it, despite raising a minor red flag in my head. I'm trying not to hold her to her past mistakes, but recently it's really been weighing heavy on me. She works in an office setting, and her team recently hired a new guy. She's been talking to him and about him a lot lately. She told me that another female coworker made a comment something along the lines of, "Ooh, so you and the new guy, eh?" Which made me feel uneasy as it implies that they act flirty together. I'm heavily considering the fact that maybe I'm just being insecure and might have some deeper trust issues, and if that is the case, I'm not sure how I can work on that issue while still being in a relationship with her. Any thoughts or advice?
After moving to a new city, I met this guy on Tinder. Our relationship was progressing really fast, and after a few weeks of dating, I found out I was pregnant. We went to the hospital where they confirmed I was pregnant, but very early on. My boyfriend was furious. He said he didn't sign up for this, and he knew people who could quote-unquote get rid of it. I told him I'm going through with this, with or without him. I didn't speak to him for a couple days when he reached out saying he wants to be part of his child's life. He moved in immediately so that we could start saving money. The morning after he moved in, he made breakfast for me. I was extremely nauseous and not in the mood to eat anything. He started yelling at me and saying it's for the baby, I can't be selfish. Less than 24 hours later, I was bleeding uncontrollably. He told me it was nothing and I shouldn't seek help. When the bleeding didn't stop, I went to the hospital where they told me I was no longer pregnant. I had no suspicion he had anything to do with it, so we stayed together. Weeks later, I finally kicked him out because of the abuse he was giving me and my dogs. I found out I was pregnant and I told my OB the situation, and that's when she told me I most likely didn't miscarry but was given something to dispel my pregnancy. My daughter is now 2, but still live in fear of seeing him in public. My boyfriend and I have been on and off for about 4 years. We've had our share of problems that stem mostly from his parents. He comes from a very upper-class family, and we met when I was just waitressing and he was in college for a high-paying job. 6 months ago, I gave birth to a very much unplanned but beautiful baby girl. Of course, his parents were pissed about this, and from the start of my pregnancy kept trying to say that they didn't think it was my boyfriend's baby. But when our daughter was born, they became amazing grandparents. They always offered to keep her tons when we needed breaks, and it really helped us out, and they would always buy things for her, returning her with new outfits, bottles, toys, and etc. So anyways, a few days ago, my boyfriend came home and he was in a pretty bad mood. He didn't want to tell me, but in the end, he decided it was best if I knew. His parents let it slip that they had taken our daughter to get a DNA test about a month after she was born. Of course, the results came back that my boyfriend was the father, but he was pissed that they would even do something like this without our consent. I was livid. I called his parents and immediately told them that they were cut off. I don't need them or their money, and I'm disgusted that they would stoop so low. They apologized and said they only wanted what was best for their son, and they can't blame me for trying to be good parents. Growing up as the youngest of 6 siblings, I knew at a really young age I would have to put myself through college. So by the time I was 19, I saved enough money to put me through college with the help of scholarships and have plenty left over. Well, my eldest sister got married a month ago, and my parents took out a second mortgage, $30,000 to help pay for her wedding. My dad lost his job right after, and I knew that they were struggling financially. So when my mom texted me a few weeks ago saying, "Call me as soon as you can," I knew what she was asking for. I didn't have a problem lending them a few thousand and help them pay their bills, and I'd also give them a few of my tutoring gigs to help make some extra cash. But what I didn't expect was my parents' demand that I gave them the near $40,000 I saved to put myself through college. When I disagreed, my mom said, "You made that money under our roof. We were the ones who allowed you to work, so you have it because of us anyway. We bought you food and clothes for 18 years. I said that's a bare minimum when you sign up to become parents. And she hung up on me saying I wouldn't have the life I have today if it wasn't for them. I feel awful for refusing to help them out, but on the other hand, this was their fault. My mother-in-law has hated me since day one because I grew up in a single-family household, and she told my husband that he deserved to be with someone who came from a 2-parent household. For 4 years, I bit my tongue trying to get her to like me. When we got engaged, she tried to dictate my whole wedding, not offering to pay for anything. When I decided I didn't want kids at the wedding, she flipped and told me I was selfish, that the wedding isn't for me, that I'm tearing her family apart, and that I'm ruining her life. Day of the wedding, she causes a scene because my mom danced with me and my husband, stealing her spotlight. My husband and her get into a fight, he storms away, and then she pushes me. I push her off, and then she lunges at me, going for my throat. She's literally trying to choke me at my wedding. All because I tried to grab my husband and say that this was not the time for a fight with his mom. She gets escorted out by security. Fast forward to now. She tries to communicate with my husband, and my husband ignores her. Now he wants her back in his life. I don't know what to do. This lady put her hands on me at our wedding. I tried explaining to my husband how much she's hurt me, and he says he understands, but that's his mom. I don't know if I should let my husband talk to her again because I don't want him to resent me, but she crossed so many boundaries and she doesn't see what she did wrong. And she refuses to apologize to me. When I was 27, my boyfriend proposed to me. We both have stable jobs and decided to plan the wedding immediately. Around the same time, my brother proposed to his 24-year-old girlfriend, and they started planning for the wedding as well. One day, my future sister-in-law called me to see if we can go over wedding planning. That's when she told me if I could get married in the afternoon and that she could get married an hour or two later, and then we share the reception. She said it'd become a great way for us to become sisters, and that this will mean the world to my brother. In reality, I know that they aren't financially well off, and she wants the fancy wedding without the fancy wedding price tag. I didn't really know what to say, but I told her that's mine and my fiancé's wedding. We planned it for us, and we want it to be about us. She exploded in anger and said I wouldn't understand how hurtful it is to see the amazing wedding that I'm planning and know that she couldn't have something like that. I told her I waited to get married so that I could afford the wedding I wanted. And she said she wants to get married before she's old and dried up like some people. She called me heartless and a selfish bitch. I stormed off, and my brother called me a few days later. He asked if I could please reconsider. When my daughter was born, she had dark skin and looked like her parents could be of African descent. My husband was furious and accused me of cheating and left right then and there. He told everyone on both sides of the family what happened and wanted a divorce. Then his friends and families all called me to say how upset they were and called me really nasty names. My mother was by my side the entire time as I kept professing my innocence. He refused to pick me up from the hospital, threw myself out on the lawn, and changed the locks. When my sister called to get the baby stuff, he texted her a picture of a bare nursery room and said he got rid of everything. He even destroyed my art studio. Eventually, he agreed to do a paternity test, and he was 100% the father. No one could believe this, so he did it again, and he was the dad. One of his cousins did the ancestry thing and found out there was 30% of African in their family. This made Jim's paternal great-grandmother admit to having an affair around the same time Jim's grandfather was born, and because he could pass as hers, she just assumed her husband was the father. Since then, he's been reaching out and everyone has come to apologize. I told him I needed time, and he asked to see the baby, and I let him, but I'm too afraid to physically hand her to him. I've never cheated and have been 100% innocent all this time. Am I the asshole for not wanting to give him a second chance? When my parents decided to get a divorce, I chose to stay with my dad. He was more financially stable, and he also promised to take care of me in the future and help me go through college as long as I graduated. When my grandmother from my mother's side passed away, I received a $30,000 inheritance, and recently my grandfather from my father's side passed away and left me with $50,000 as well. I was also working part-time jobs, and with all of that, I was able to save enough to comfortably put me through my 4 years of school. One day, my mom surprised my stepsister and bought her a brand new car. I was kind of shocked because it was way out of their budget because I knew they were struggling financially. When I looked at my bank account, I saw that a majority of my money was missing. I have my mom on all of my accounts because she wanted to monitor to make sure I don't spend too much money. I never would have thought she would have taken this and paid for my stepsister's car. Her reasoning was that my stepsister had a brighter future and had a bigger possibility of going to an Ivy League school and providing for us in the future. Well, I, a student who gets mostly B's and C's, would just take over the family business, so I didn't really need it, and I could always work in the future. My fiancé and I postponed our wedding because his mother fell extremely ill, and so we're waiting until she's healthy enough to attend. My 17-year-old niece procrastinated in finding a dress for prom next Saturday, so she called me and asked if she could borrow one of my gowns. I work in the fashion industry and have amassed a small collection of black tie gowns that are reserved for events. I was happy to lend one out to my niece. They came over today, but I was on the phone with the client, so I just told them to go upstairs and go find something they liked. My cat knocked into a bag of flowers, so I was busy cleaning that up when my niece and my sister walked out of my closet. I didn't want them to step into the mess, so I told them I'd catch them on my niece's prom night. I went to see what dress my niece took, and I noticed that the white bag that contained my wedding dress wasn't zipped all the way, and I noticed my dress was missing. I called my sister, but she was avoiding my phone calls and immediately drove her to her house to confront her. They initially denied, saying they didn't know that it was my wedding dress, but that was BS because my sister was there when I picked out the dress and was at all my fittings. Then they changed the story and said that was the only dress my niece liked, and didn't think it was a big deal since it didn't really look like a wedding dress and they would have returned it anyways. I simply took my dress and left, and my niece is furious and crying, saying I ruined her prom.
Quite a few of you wanted to hear about the time that I pulled a senior prank, aka the Ketchup Bandit story, so, story time. My senior prank came into existence solely because I was petty. See, the high school I went to for my senior year was the most backwoods, bullshit, country bumpkin kind of high school I've ever been to, and I've been to 4. Like, they had rules for which stairs you could go up or down on. You got an entire new set of classes every quarter. And to top it all off, senior year was kind of the year that I just gave up. I didn't really care what anybody thought of me, because I was just done. Anyways, picture this. It's free period. Every day, the entire school got 1 hour for free period where you could do whatever you wanted. That was the time to have lunch, do activities, go to clubs, things like that. So I'm sitting at lunch, I'm enjoying myself, I am enjoying my one break of the day, and then all of a sudden over the intercom I hear, all seniors must report to the gym. All seniors must report to the gym. Y'all had to take my one fucking break. Okay, great. And we weren't allowed to eat in the gym, so I had to throw out the rest of my lunch and go to gym. Anyways, senior class arrives at the gym, we're all sat there, kind of like, what the fuck is going on, not really sure what's happening. And then the principal walks out. And I think, oh, great, this is going to be one of those don't do drugs at prom announcements, isn't it? That's what I had to lose my lunch for. Fuck me. So the principal comes out and goes, all right, boys and girls, I have something very important I need to talk to you about. And I was like, I'm sure you think you do. I'm sure it's not going to be as important as you think it is, but carry on. He goes, I know it's senior year. It's the year to have fun. It's the year to relax and be yourselves. I understand that. But this school has been prank-free for 10 years, and we're going to keep it that way. Do I make myself clear? And I'm sat up in the bleachers like, really? You took away my free period for this? To address a problem you haven't had for 10 years. You done fucked up. Now you're having a prank this year, motherfucker. And you'd think that'd be the end of it. No. No, he kept us for 30 fucking minutes. Talking about how we as students should have pride in our school and we should protect our school from the ravages of prankers. You for real? You for serious, my guy? What the fuck? I spaced out like 5 minutes after he told us we weren't allowed to prank, and that's what the assembly was about. I just checked the fuck out and started plotting a prank, because fuck that guy. See, I'd never pulled off a school prank, but I needed to do something that 1, couldn't be traced back to me, 2, would keep people talking about it for a while, 3, wasn't destructive enough to warrant police involvement, and 4, was free, because I was a broke bitch. So when the assembly ended, I went back to lunch, hopefully to get some more food, because I was annoyed that my food had been ruined. And as I was in the lunch line, I saw ketchup packets, and suddenly, an idea. So as you probably guessed from the story title, my prank involved ketchup. And at the time, I was still femme presenting, so I had access to the women's restroom. So as quickly and discreetly as I possibly could, I grabbed a shit ton of ketchup packets. And then I went around to each of the girls' toilets and folded ketchup packets and put them under the seats, so when people sat on them, it would shoot ketchup at the back of your knees. And I thought, that's great. Nobody gets hurt. The worst that'll happen is you have like a stain you have to get out in the wash, and everyone will think it's funny. Like, perfect. That's not what happened. Yeah, no, people were pissed. Like, really pissed. It didn't go over as well as I thought it would. I didn't realize how poorly the prank had been received until the next day at lunch. I realized there weren't any ketchup packets in the lunch line, and I thought, that's a bit odd, but maybe they just ran out. Maybe they were waiting for a new shipment. Until an announcement came over the intercom. The vice principal came over the intercom and said, attention students, you're probably wondering why there aren't any ketchup packets in the lunch line. And I thought, yes I am. Please elaborate. And she continued on to say, there was a malicious attack on the girls' bathrooms yesterday. And until the perpetrator comes forth, there will be no more ketchup in this school. I was stunned. I sat there at my table, looking at my sad ketchupless hot dog and thought, this means war. So I whipped out my phone and texted my mom, you're not going to believe what just went down. Side note, I had told my mom I was pulling the senior prank, and she thought it was hilarious. She responded with, "What's wrong? What happened?" And I said, "They took away the ketchup. They confiscated the ketchup. The ketchup is now contraband, and I am pissed." And my mom was like, "Yeah, that seems like a bit of an overreaction. They probably shouldn't punish the whole school for the acts of one person, but, you know, what are you gonna do?" And I was like, "This means war. I have to enact my revenge." She was like, "Well, what do you want to do? There's not much else you can do at this point except confess." And I was like, "No. I need to make a statement. I need to make this burn as much as them taking away my ketchup has burned me." And then I was hit with the most brilliant idea. I texted her again and I said, "Mom, I know what I want to do." And she said, "Do tell." And I said, "I want to write in giant letters made of ketchup, 'Catch me if you can,' on the sidewalk in front of the school." And you know what my mother's response to that was? "You should spell it Ketch, like ketchup. Take my credit card and go to Walmart." So I did. So with my mother's blessing and her credit card, I make a beeline to Walmart after school, and I purchase 2 of the 64-ounce bottles of ketchup. Ketchup secured, I head home and nap until about 12 o'clock that night, where I get up and start getting ready to enact my revenge. I throw my 2 gigantic bottles of ketchup into my Doctor Who backpack, which I never took to school, donned a pair of black jeans and a black hoodie, complete with a black t-shirt, tie my hair back in a high ponytail so that it'll be hidden by my hood when I pull it over, and then I head to the living room and say, "All right, Mom, I think I'm ready. I'm gonna head out." And she goes, "All right, don't get caught." And so I leave. I hop in my car and start driving. Now, because I'm ADD and I'm absolutely shit with directions, I do this thing where I create little mental landmarks, where I assign a location to a specific tree or storefront that lets me know I am in the vicinity of certain things. And because of this, I knew that just down the road from the school was an abandoned Mexican restaurant. So once I got a bit closer, I switched off my headlights and turned into the Mexican restaurant's parking lot and parked behind the building so that nobody could see my car from the road and nobody could see it from the school's parking lot. Then I stowed my phone in the glove box because the last thing I needed was a rogue phone to alert the guards. I grabbed my backpack, locked my car, stowed my keys in my pocket, and darted across the 4 lanes that separated me and my victory. Once across the street, I ducked into this little patch of wooded area that wasn't owned by anybody, so it was just overgrown and unkept and perfect for hiding in. And I sat there and I waited and I watched until I concluded it was safe. And once I was sure that nobody would catch me, I sprinted out of the bushes and pressed myself up against the wall of the school just to make sure that nobody from the road would see me. Then I shimmied my way down the wall until I got to the part where if I turned the corner, I would be in front of the school, but the entire school front was lit. Which meant I had to cover about 500, maybe 600 feet of open, lit space where I was just exposed. So I set down my backpack, took out one of my ketchup bottles, took a deep breath, and fucking booked it to the front doors. As soon as I got there, I uncapped the ketchup bottle, thankful I had taken off the stupid little safety tab at home, and quickly wrote out my message in ketchup and then sprinted back to the darkness. It was then I realized I had about a bottle and a half of ketchup left, so I went and hit 3 more locations in the school. I went and wrote my message at the back entrance where all of the kids who got dropped off by their parents would enter the school. Then, feeling emboldened and powerful by managing to pull this off twice, I went and did it in front of the freshman entrance as well. And then, just as quickly as I came, I vanished back into the thicket, where I waited until I was sure there were no cars coming and then darted across the street back to the Mexican restaurant and got in my car. Headlights still off, I quickly pulled into the Mexican restaurant and booked it home. Where upon arrival, my mother said, "Did you complete your mission?" And I said I did, and she said, "That's my kid." The next day, I got up, put the ketchup bag in the house because that wasn't coming to school with me, and headed off to class. And upon arrival, I realized they were doing car checks. Both the principal and the vice principal were stationed in front of the school, and in order for you to be allowed into the school, you had to get out of your car and let them search it for contraband. But I'd already stashed the evidence, so they didn't find anything and they let me in. Unfortunately, I did later get caught. You see, on the day of the initial prank, I had told a couple of girls who I thought I was friends with, evidently not, that I was going to plant these mini ketchup bombs and that they should, look before they sit. They ratted me out to the fucking principal. That alone wasn't enough to get me caught. What ended up being the final nail in my coffin is I had brought ketchup packets to school in a chip bag because I wanted to have ketchup with my hot dog at lunch that day. I was also already on thin ice because I had glitter bombed my IEP teacher. Anyways, at the end of first period, I'm pulled into the principal's office, and the principal, the vice principal, the truancy officer, and my IEP teacher are all standing there glaring at me, and I'm like, ugh. I know what I did, but what do you think I did? Fuck. They interrogated me for like 20-30 minutes in this tiny office, surrounded by people bigger than me, screaming at me, until it triggered an anxiety attack because my PTSD is linked to being trapped in a small space, and through tears, I told them whatever they wanted to hear just to get them to stop, and confessed. So they called my mother to inform her that I was the ketchup bandit. I was no longer allowed to walk at graduation. I was not going on the senior field trip, and I was not allowed at the senior after graduation party because it had taken their janitors 3 hours to clean up ketchup. To which my mother responded, wait a minute, hold on a minute, let me get this straight. You took a child who has severe anxiety and PTSD linked to small spaces and police, and stuck him in a small room surrounded by 3 adults and a policeman, and interrogated him for 30 minutes until he cried and confessed. Is that what I'm hearing here? She said that sounds like intimidation, abuse of power, and neglect. I think that could spell out a really nasty lawsuit for you. My principal sputtered in response and said, but we have to punish him somehow. And she said, no, by all means, punish him. But here's how the punishment is going to go. He is going to walk. He is going to go on the senior trip, and he is going to go to the after graduation party. All you're allowed to do in this situation is put my child in ISS and let him finish his art project for his final. Anything beyond that, and I will sue you. And so that's what happened. I got stuck in ISS to finish my art project. This is just kind of how students reacted to finding out that I was the ketchup bandit. One girl threatened to kick my ass after school because she had sat down on one of the booby-trapped seats. The kids in ISS thought I was a fucking legend. They were like, that was you? That's fucking awesome. I was no longer under the illusion that the girls who ratted me out were my friends and promptly told them to go fuck themselves. And word traveled pretty fast around the school that I was the ketchup bandit. And students either loved me or hated me, but regardless, they were all talking about me. Some of them couldn't believe it was me because I was the quiet kid. Some of them were like, that makes sense, he's the quiet kid. I did, in fact, get to go on my senior trip. I went to the after-graduation senior party, and I did get to walk. Actually, fun fact, I showed up late for graduation rehearsal on the last day of school with McDonald's. A couple of seniors did come up to me at the after-graduation party and ask me if I was actually the person who pulled the prank or if I was just taking credit for the clout, and I was like, no, it was me. And I showed them the ketchup receipts, and they were like, it really do be the quiet ones, huh?
One time I had to babysit one of my neighbor's kids overnight. We're gonna call the kid Benny. The parents didn't really tell me anything when they left me alone with Benny, but they left me a note and they were like, you can only open it in emergencies. So at this point, I'm alone with Benny. It's like 11 p.m. and I told Benny, I was like, dude, you should like get to bed. It's late. Then Benny starts getting really red and he's like, no, we don't want to sleep alone. Sleep with us, please. I didn't know why Benny said us, but I was like, whatever, okay, like, yeah, I'll sleep in your room, like, it's fine. So fast forward a couple hours, it's like 3 a.m. at this point. This is the best part.
Benny starts talking in his sleep and he's like, take her instead. You're not my friend anymore. I am not yours.
And I try waking him up and I look at him and his eyes are wide open as he says this stuff. I was freaking out, so I went to go open the note that his parents said was only for emergencies. It just gets better. The note said, we're sorry for not telling you, run him a cold bath, call 911 in case anything. So after Benny was literally acting possessed while I was sleeping in his room, I went to go open the note that his parents left that was only for emergencies.
And guess what it said?
The note literally said, sorry for not telling you, run him a cold bath, and call 911 if anything happens.
I didn't know what to do, so I just went to go wake up Benny.
So when I woke Benny up, he was really, really mad, and he kept trying to put his hands in front of my eyes and was telling me, please be nice to them, open up. And so long story short, I ran Benny a cold bath, and then he locked himself in the bathroom. So at this point, Benny has literally locked himself in the bathroom, and he's literally yelling out loud, please take her, not me, I won't tell anyone.
This is the best part.
So I called the police because I was scared for my life at this point. And the note that his parents left said to do that. So the cops tried calling Benny's parents, but they couldn't get a hold of them, but they got a hold of the grandparents. And eventually his grandparents came. So his grandparents come and they're like, we're gonna take him to a priest. And they told me to
Storytime Tinder edition. Okay, the story blew up on Twitter like a while ago, but I'm just gonna retell it because it's very informational. So there was this guy and this girl, and they met through Tinder, and then they met up and they went on this date. And they were out at dinner, and then she starts not feeling so well. And then she says, I really need to go home. And he says, yeah, I'll drive you home. And she says, okay. So then they get to her house, and then she starts feeling better. So then she says, do you want to come in for some coffee? And then he says, yeah, sure. So they go inside, they have their coffee, and then she doesn't feel well again. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel well again. I think you really need to leave. And he's like, okay. And he leaves. And then she goes to bed, and in the middle of the night, she wakes up, and she hears this noise down in her kitchen. And so she locks her door, and she calls the cop. And the 911 operator is just on the other line saying, can you just stay on the line until the cops get there? And then the cops get there, and they're like, the door is locked. Like, we don't think anyone's inside. And she's like, I promise you, someone's inside my house. I can hear them. She says, you have my permission to break down the door. So she's still up in her room, and then she hears the cops break down the door. And then she hears some wrestling and some fighting. Part 2 of the Tinder story. So then after the cops break down the door, they go upstairs and they knock on her door, and they're like, it's okay, we've got the guy, everything's fine. And they say to her, we don't really want you to stay here tonight. We don't think that you should see what he's done. And when I say he, it's the guy that she went on a date with. And she's like, no, I need to see what he's done. So she goes downstairs and she sees her kitchen wrapped all in plastic, and there's a saw and a hammer and a knife. And earlier when he came into her house for coffee, he set his keys down right next to her keys. And so when he left, he picked up both sets of keys. And that is how he got back into her house. And they tested her, like her blood and everything, and she wasn't supposed to wake up because of how many drugs were in her system, because on the date he drugged her. And then I guess he was just planning on chopping up her body in her own kitchen. I don't know.
This is why you should always lock your doors. A junior in high school was home alone working on a paper while his parents were out to dinner. All night he sits with his back to his door, sitting at his desk with his noise-canceling headphones on. Around 11 o'clock he takes his headphones off at the same time his parents are returning to the house, and he hears his mom from downstairs yell, "Hey Adrian, what happened?" Confused, he runs downstairs and sees right away what she's looking at. Muddy footprints all over the rug. He tells her, "I didn't leave my desk." And then they realize someone must have broken in. They look at the footprints and there's none leaving the house. They're worried someone's still in the house, so they run into the garage, terrified, call the police. Police arrive and they don't find anyone in the house, but they do make a chilling discovery upstairs. The police bring them to the kid's bedroom door, which had been left open all night, and they point to the message written on it in Sharpie. This is the actual transcript of what was written on his door, which means for nearly 2 hours, someone stood in this kid's doorway watching him.
So when I was a sophomore in high school, I had this teacher who would only let the students in her class use the restroom one time per semester. Well, one day I raised my hand and I was like, excuse me, I don't remember her name. Can I please use the restroom? And she was like, no, you can't because you've already used the restroom in my class this semester. Well, excuse me, you can't dictate my bladder. So I'm like all frustrated, and I started secretly texting my mom because I wasn't allowed to use my phone in class. And I was like, Mom, I'm sitting in class right now. My teacher won't let me use the restroom. And she was like, I'll take care of it for you. And I was like, okay. So like 5 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden my teacher's phone starts ringing, and she walks up to it and answers it, and she's like, hello? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then she walks up to me like so angry, and she like slams the pass on my desk, and she was like, since you have to go that bad. And I was like, yeah, I really do, thanks. And I got up and left. I didn't even have to go to the bathroom. It was just the principle of it. I just roamed the halls.
This is a story of how I embarrassed myself in front of my entire class. So it was 7th grade math class, and honestly, when I was in middle school, that was definitely my awkward stage. I was just really weird. I always said the wrong thing. And I was always just embarrassing myself in front of people. One day, we were going over all these drills, like, lockdowns, fire drills, all that. And my teacher had a list of questions that we all had to answer, and she was the type of teacher that would just call on you randomly whether you were paying attention or not. And back then, we weren't even allowed to have phones, so I was just completely zoned out because of my ADHD, and the teacher decides to call on me after she had asked this question. If you're in the bathroom by yourself and an intruder comes in and says, "Is anybody in here?" what do you say? Then she calls on me, and I don't know why, but the first thing in my head was to say that you say no. And right away, my teacher looked at me like I was an idiot and started crying, laughing with the entire class. I was mortified.
My boyfriend showed up to my house randomly one day. I had just woken up and I got ready so fast in my room. Mom told him that he could wait in the living room. She ended up jumping in the shower. I went outside to the living room and we ended up going to his house. And I was there. My mom called me. She said that there was $350 on the table and that one $50 bill was missing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I had to find out the truth. So I told him to take me to Jack in the Box. We went through the drive-thru. I was so mad, but I had to keep it together. I knew that he only paid with 20s. He never paid with 50s. I ordered my food and I was waiting to see what bill he pulls out. And guess what, guys? It was a $50 bill. Then I looked at him and told him, "Don't pay with my mom's money." I grabbed my purse, pulled out a 20, and told him, "Pay with my money." His eyes just popped open. He knew he got caught.
This is the reason why everybody thought I dropped out of high school. Over the 4 years of high school, I was probably in school a total of 100 times altogether. And this wasn't because I was lazy. I mean, partially. But it was mostly because I had really bad stomach problems. So I always had these doctor's appointments. I was always missing school because my stomach hurt. So then my junior year, since my attendance was really, really bad, they decided to put me on home instruction. This means that teachers would come to my house for about 2 hours a day, 3 days a week. And my teachers had to bring with them these time slips. For example, saying that they saw me from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And when I was a minor, my dad had to sign it. And when they hand in those time slips, those are the hours they're getting paid for. So I had this one teacher. She was my history teacher, but we would literally just gossip the entire time. She was mad chill. Sometimes, though, she would cancel on me, and sometimes I would cancel on her. But this was my senior year, so I was 18. So I was able to sign the time slips. So I saw her once a month when I was supposed to see her 4 times a month. So every time she came, I signed 4 time slips. I got the credit, she got the check.
A little girl made me cry last night. So the coffee shop that I work at also has ice cream. And so this lady had brought in her granddaughter to get ice cream. This little girl's probably about 4 or 5 years old. And she asked for ice cream with sprinkles. And so I absolutely loaded it with sprinkles because she's a kid and I have a heart. And the entire time this girl's eating her ice cream, she just keeps glancing at me. And right before they're about to leave, the grandmother brings her up and says, "Okay, tell her what you wanted to tell her." The little girl looks up at me and goes, "I think you're a princess." And the grandmother goes, "Tell her why you think that." And the little girl looks up at me and goes, "Because you remind me of sunshine."
Story of the time I snuck a boy into my best friend's house. So me and my friend were in 7th grade. And if you're new here, I guess you don't really know. But 7th grade is when I really went wild. Not high school, not college, but 7th grade. So my friend's parents had went away on a cruise. Her grandma was watching her and her siblings. And me too, because I slept there every single day. It's funny because I can't remember how I met this boy. I just remember that me and my friend both wanted to hang out. It was really weird. So this kid ends up riding his bike over to her house. Mind you, it was daytime. So I don't know how we got away with this. But he snuck in through the back and we took him upstairs into her room. We were all really thirsty, so we started drinking water. I drank so much water that I started to feel sick. But I ignored it and drank more water. And even though 7th grade was my crazy stage, all I would ever do with boys is just kiss them. So I kissed this boy, and eventually I had to use the bathroom. So I left for about 10 minutes, and I came back to my friend